against Moscow. Let's now move over to the Middle East, where Israeli airstrikes have killed at least 29 people around the European hospital in Khan Yunis, according to Gaza's Civil Defense Agency. Spokesman Mahmoud Basal confirmed that rescue crews recovered the bodies from the area. Israel's military has urged residents in multiple northern Gaza locations to evacuate immediately ahead of a planned attack. Military spokesman Ariche Arvadi warned on social media that the IDF would strike any location used to launch rockets and urged civilians to seek shelter in Gaza City. French President Emmanuel Macron has slammed Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for blocking aid to Palestinians in Gaza. Speaking to TF1, Macron called Netanyahu's actions unacceptable and shameful, highlighting the lack of water, medicine and access for wounded civilians and medical staff. UN Under-Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs Tom Fletcher has demanded that Israel lift its aid blockade on Gaza. Fletcher said Israel's offensive has killed tens of thousands and devastated the enclave. Let's take a listen in to what he said.
Israel is deliberately and unashamedly imposing inhumane conditions on civilians in the occupied Palestinian territory. For more than 10 weeks, nothing has entered Gaza, no food, medicine, water or tent.
The armed wing of Islamic Jihad claimed responsibility for rocket attacks on southern Israel, targeting Ashdod, Ashkelon, Serdot and other areas near the Gaza border. This comes after the Israeli military reported intercepting 2 projectiles, with a third landing in an open area. Israel's military confirmed that it intercepted 2 projectiles from Gaza, while a third fell without causing any damage. The incident prompted sirens in communities near the Gaza Strip, but no injuries were reported. Hostage families and former hostages freed in earlier deals marched in Tel Aviv, calling for an agreement to free all remaining hostages in Gaza and to end the war. Among the participants was Abdel Yayud, who was released in the most recent agreement after 482 days in captivity. Demonstrators urged the Trump administration to pressure Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to secure a ceasefire. Israeli Prime Minister also announced on May the 12th that the military will enter Gaza with full force in the coming days. The United Kingdom's ambassador to the UN, Barbara Woodward, has issued a warning to Israel. Let's take a listen to it.
Israel has now fully blocked aid entering Gaza for over 2 months. Blocking aid as a pressure lever is unacceptable. And last week, the Israeli Security Cabinet approved plans to expand its military operations in Gaza. We strongly oppose both these actions, which will add to Palestinian suffering while doing nothing to serve the long-term interests of peace and security in the region.
Let's move on once again. New Delhi has rejected claims made by US President Donald Trump that trade deals helped broker a ceasefire between India and Pakistan. In a strong statement, India's foreign ministry said there was no discussion on trade during the standoff. Trump, speaking at a US-Saudi investment forum, said he used trade to push both sides towards peace, suggesting that without de-escalation, they'd lose access to US markets. Let's listen in.
Is to be a peacemaker and to be a unifier. I don't like war. Just days ago, my administration successfully brokered a historic ceasefire to stop the escalating violence between India and Pakistan. And I used trade to a large extent to do it. I said, fellas, come on, let's make a deal. Let's do some trading. Let's not trade nuclear missiles. Let's trade. We both have very powerful leaders, very strong leaders, good leaders, smart leaders. And it all stopped. Hopefully it'll remain that way, but it all stopped. I was actually getting along. Maybe we can even get them together a little bit, Marco, where they go out and have a nice dinner together. Wouldn't that be nice? But we've come a long way, and it could be, millions of people could have died from that conflict that started off small and was getting bigger and bigger and bigger by the day.
However, India says the real reason Pakistan stopped firing was its own military strikes on key Pakistani Air Force bases. The ceasefire was coordinated through a direct call between the two militaries on May the 10th. The Foreign Ministry also clarified that international communications were consistent with its public stance, that India was targeting terror infrastructure in response to a deadly attack in Kashmir. India's High Commissioner to Australia added that de-escalation remains a priority, but defending its citizens is non-negotiable. Let's listen in.
Had a ceasefire for a few days. It was initially looking very shaky.
Unfortunately, Pakistan violated it in the first few hours, but I think in the last few hours it has held, and we hope that this will continue.
Back to the Middle East once again, where